Previously
why me?
in part one.
Why now? Like, I'm skipping around, you know. I grew up in a very violent childhood where my father was incredibly violent with me. And that's where you learn to people please and be perfect, because they're...
I wanted to come back to what we said earlier is you can't choose the response.
Mm-hmm.
And that took me back to episode 1 we did with you, where you mentioned how some really tumultuous relationships and abusive ones can have really good sex lives.
Yes.
And the shame as a result of that. I want to take you back to that. So you can't choose ever the response to what happens in a certain situation.
So that one's like slightly more linked to attachment. So when you've got, we said like, why is the best sex with the worst people usually, you know? So if we had a chat and you're like, and it's always someone that you probably don't necessarily, either wasn't yours or in a sense like, oh, I knew them at work, or there's like something going on, you know? And that's because of that. Like the erotic thrives in the unknown. Okay, it's the imagination. Whereas, you know, Margot Robbie, unbelievable, right? You know, so like you two imagining like, oh, it'd be great to date her. She might be quite annoying. Who knows? I doubt it. I doubt
She's
it.
not.
She's not. No, I mean, I doubt it. I would date her. I think she's incredible. But, you know, day to day, if we asked her husband, he might be like, oh, to be honest, like she can be a bit of a cat on a period. Like, you know, so it's like, but the relationships ask us for intimacy, okay? Relationships drive us for commitment. We want to know everything about the other person. That is the opposite of the erotic, which thrives in the unknown, okay? So, you know, honeymoon period, and there's obviously chemicals around the honeymoon period as well, all of those sorts of things. However, so this is like kind of linked to attachment, and we're meant to be attached because when we lived it back in the day and we're surviving, we're safer in numbers. Okay, so now we live in modern world where I live on my own with my kid and perfectly fine, but my physiology has not been upgraded to 2024 to kind of live with that. So when you're going through a breakup in particular is the best time to sort of, you know, you can be breaking up for all the right reasons. Relationship doesn't work. All your mates are like, 100% this is the right thing. You're like, it's the right thing. Oh, is it the right thing? And you know how your brain plays this like weird film of like all the best moments you ever had, even though it's probably 3 years earlier. You're like, oh, do you remember that one time that we did watch Netflix and you weren't a bitch? Like, like you go through all this, and it's because it's your attachment system. Like we're meant to stay attached. That's you know, obviously you might be missing the individual as well, but it's the physiology of it when you understand that. So when we look at relationships that are not great. Okay. Why do we keep going back if we were having an affair? Why would we stay with a partner that was abusive in any way to us? Our system, everything works in balance. Everything in our body's in balance. The heartbeat, the pulse, life, autonomic nervous, everything's in balance. So to stay attached, if our relationship is unsafe in any way, an affair partner, it's not mine, there's abuse in the situation, violence, danger in some way, we have to turn up another dial. We have to make this balance. So if you have extraordinary sex with someone that in any way, not even necessarily violent, but is coercive, controlling in any sense at all, you think, and I'm gonna own this for women as well, especially as a woman, because we're shown Disney films, and unless you get butterflies and, you know, that's how it should be. And if I went on a date and I was like, yeah, he was really, really nice, he said all the right things, I said that to my mates, and like, oh, did you have a kiss? Like, yeah, how was it? They'd all go, oh. Like, you know, you have to have the butterflies. It has to be this thing. It has to be the chemicals. Not necessarily. Like, need base attraction, but the rest can build over time. So this sense, this shame, confusion. How could I have experienced pain, fear, upset of any kind with this partner, and then had unbelievable pleasure with this partner? How can that be? And it's called non-cordance. This is this dial that can get turned up to keep us attached. Right. So like I said, the physiology needs like a 2024 upgrade or just for people to understand it. Like, why would I have, I mean, we spoke before about Baby Reindeer. Like there's a scene in that where there's sexual assault and he goes back and he says in it, why did I go back? There's also a scene where a lady goes to touch him and he doesn't stop her and doesn't know what to do. And he's like, I don't know why I didn't stop her. Freeze. He was freezing. And then why did he go back? He was so confused. There was a lot of like drugs and everything else involved. So he had flashbacks. But that was also fawning because this person was very powerful and had a good impact on his career and really could have helped him. Why do you go back?
So it's so interesting.
Oh, it's amazing. But when people understand this is like, honestly, my life's MO now. It's absolutely my mission. Yeah. You are free because you realise it's not you and it's not something you did. And if you realise that, you don't need to have any shame.
That's so interesting.
Amazing. Is there any link to what you just said about either I don't know if it's Helsinki or Stockholm syndrome, where you fall in love with your captor? Is there any link to that whatsoever?
I mean, I don't know enough about that, but I would think so. I would think that everything becomes relative to what we consume, right? Like anything that we consume, that becomes our baseline. So, if we moved to a new country and we never liked that food, or we didn't like this music, but that's all we ever consumed by, you will start to be able to pick out different elements of that. So I mean, I think the fawning must play a part of that as well, but I don't know. I don't want to comment as an expert on that. I don't know about it. It would be very confusing. It'd be very, very, especially when people have had children. It would be incredibly confusing because I imagine at some points that person is kind to you. Yeah. At some point that person probably is meeting some of your needs and saying certain things, and it would be the confusion would be the shameful part to unwind.
That's so interesting. Talking on baby reindeer before, we put a poll out to the community. Thank you for responding so much, because sometimes we get like one or two. We've had about 10 questions which people want to ask you. Joe and I have put 2 in of ourselves as well, but one of them from our point of view was the baby reindeer one, which we talked about. What aspects of the series should people look out for, and how do they kind of resonate with your work as well? As I know that's something you wanted to speak about as a series.
I mean, I don't know whether there's been a lot of talk about whether they've done the wrong thing by the lady that's involved or not. So not commenting on that. I don't know enough about it. What I think it's done brilliantly is the shame piece, because he talks about that. So he is a victim of sexual assault, or fawning, and he doesn't know why he went back. And because there was a lot of drugs involved, and now we've talked about it, your prefrontal cortex is offline. So you've got some substances that are affecting your brain. But like I said to you, he won't remember things. And they do the flashbacks really well, where he's not quite sure of what happened. It's not quite in order. Then as a result of that, he devalues himself. Now, this is where people get really ashamed as well, that something's happened to him. So then he has like casual sex with everybody, who knows if it's safe or not, in unsafe places. Kind of shows it in like toilets everywhere, and could be putting himself at risk in all these ways, right? So I mean, addictive behavior is looking at if you're taking risks, like too many risks, to put yourself at risk as well, in harm's way. I think the way that he depicts that is amazing. And the other thing he touches on well is he uses quite hardcore porn after the attack, and he feels so ashamed about it, right? And he says, and I think this is a very good point, he had to do that because only in the realm of fantasy, I'm ad-libbing here, was there information kind of about what had happened to him, because it was so extreme. It was so, and he obviously can't remember it all, right? So he's in trauma and there's all the other stuff going on, which means you haven't got all your faculties. You can't make sense of it. So he's, God love him, which we all do, trying to make sense of something. And so he's trying to make sense of his sexuality by devaluing himself in these, not consciously, but he's trying to make sense of his sexuality in these ways, but taking risks. He's putting himself at harm's way. And then the other thing he's doing is trying to almost find a benchmark for who he is now, what he means. And there isn't like, let's chat about it at the pub, boys, because, no one's got this information. So he has to go to extremes, whereas the extremes found in fantasy realm. Hardcore fantasy realm. And I think that was beautifully done, because I think for anybody that has experienced something like that at all, you feel so ashamed, and there is not the information out there. Like, where's the library book that you can go and get that says, and that it's factual, this will really help you, this is actually true, it's been approved by the FDA or whoever, this is, read this and it's 100% the truth. It's not available. So with any kind of thing that's happened to us, any kind of rupture, any kind of trauma, this is where addictions stem from. And I include in that like people that are using control behaviors, OCD, maybe self-harm, disordered eating, anything like that. You're trying to regain control. And that is what he was doing. And you're trying to understand what's happened to you. So I think he did that really well, because I think there'll be a lot of people that have looked at similar things and been like, oh my God, why am I now aroused by this or checking that out? That's why, because you don't have information. You were offline and you haven't got any kind of facility to sort of check this against.
That's really interesting. That will lead into the second question we have, and it's about sexual shame. So sexual shame can deeply affect personal and professional lives. how can we recognize and address sexual shame to improve overall well-being? That's great. I'll keep them all anonymous as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, the two, generally speaking, greatest sources of shame are financial and sexual.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that's very societal. I think there's a lot of, survival of the fittest and ways that we should be. There's a really amazing book. It's quite old now, and it's called Everybody Lies, and it's a guy called Seth Stevens-Davidovitz, and he did a brilliant TED Talk as well. Maybe we'll find it. And he used to be an analyst at Google and Facebook and all of these places. And so he got all the search terms and wrote this book. And he got all the terms from Pornhub, from everywhere that people type in. And he's like, people now use Google as a confessional booth.
Interesting. Yeah.
And you would tell Google shit you wouldn't tell your best mates, right?
Yeah.
Like, what do you type? And you read the book and you're like, you never type anything into Google ever again. Ever again. You never Google anything after reading that book. But what he sort of talks about is men will be searching for what you probably expect. Mm-hmm. Size, how do I measure up? These sorts of things.
Yeah.
And girls are like, do I smell okay? How do I get rid of the smell? Like, really shameful about themselves.
Yeah.
Women are really... So I think have this sense that how do I almost like disguise myself? And it's a really interesting read. So sexual shame and how to work around it. I mean, I could be one of those people that's like, don't watch porn and all these sorts of things. I think we know that. Like, don't compare yourself, I think would be the main thing. And if there's not a physiological reason, so there was an element of dysfunction, if that's what we're talking about here, or difficulty, there's something wrong. If your body's showing up with anything, right, there's something wrong somewhere else in the system. So I would always be encouraging people to look there. And again, there are forums, like, speak it out loud, because... people struggle for all manner of different reasons, and it's usually somewhere. It's a little bit like whack-a-mole. If we get the one, we'll find out where it is. But whether it's mental, emotional, spiritual, stress, huge underlying cause of sexual shame. Probably number one.
Do you think watching porn as a whole just completely screws your perception on what it should be in real life? This is an argument I see quite a lot online. Generally curious.
I would put that in the category of processed foods and alcohol and everything else. Use it, but I'm not going to call it a toxic substance, but understand that what you're using it for, and understand that it's not something you should be doing all of the time. Okay. And if you do, here's the thing, if you want to utilize it and you think you've got a healthy relationship with it and relationships in your life or whatever else, fine. But if you're finding that is impacting in how you're connecting with others or yourself or your sense of self-worth or shame, like, let's be curious about that and not go there. So, yeah, I mean, as a woman, do I think there's now loads of female-led pornography, there's audio only, there's all manner of different sort of erotic art that you can use that has better representation of different bodies. But I would put it in the same category, honestly, probably using social media, which let's be frank, we're not far off in some accounts and groups. We're not that far off. Anything that doesn't make you feel good about yourself, be curious about it and just use it wisely. Like I say, think about it in the same way as alcohol.
On the social media piece, someone's asked again, is your view on the whole Instagram guru thing?
Oh my God.
I like that.
From someone.
Do you want an exclusive? Because I just got absolutely
Go on then. Come on.
Last night.
That's a great question.
My work gets ripped off a lot.
Oh, of course.
But my work got ripped off last night by a guru. Okay. And it's not the first time. Okay.
Oh, no.
And it's not the first time it's happened. And it's with this person. And it's not the first time it's happened with people out there. And actually, I'm quite good friends with Vex King, who's an amazing author, lovely man. Him and his wife, incredible people. And he put a post out this week as well, because his was ripped off by a guru, like an online guru.
How does that make you feel when that happens, though? It must be quite
a bit irritating, because you're like, I put time and effort into this.
Yeah.
Someone else works with me. They put time and effort into that, like creating, designing, and then to not even give someone credit. You're doing two things here. You're not giving credit to the people that have actually done the work. I can live with that. I know I did it. The thing that you're doing that's so much worse is you are lying to people that are following you. And evidently this person, I don't think this person did it, okay? They are huge. I'm sure it was a member of their team.
Yeah.
But irrespective, that tells us it wasn't them. And they know it. They did not write those words. They did not. I mean, it's literally my post lifted. Like, they did not do that. They haven't even tried to hide it. But I get other people that have like word for worded some of my stuff on their website. You're like, and it's members of their team. Okay, but you did not write it, and it's in your name. So to me, that is misleading to people. If they're then selling courses, for example, the guru, right? You know,
the classic,
right? Like, come
course.
and I'll teach you how to not have anxiety, or whatever it is, or 6-figure side hustle, or any of these things. You know, like, you clearly did not do this. So let's just take a bit of responsibility here. But I feel, and Vex this week said on a post too, because he had it happen more than once. And it's the tide's turning, and apparently Instagram is changing the algo, which is quite reassuring, that they're picking up the origin of posts, because obviously they can check everything. And actually this week I had another impersonator account that didn't. This is incredible.
So like a fake account of you, or someone taking.
No. This was next level. So every one of my posts in the same fonts, everything exactly the same grid, everything in Portuguese. It's a Brazilian account. Every single one in order, same words, everything.
The length they've gone to for that.
So I reported it to Instagram thinking, well, they'll never do anything. They removed it like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's impersonation. We take it seriously. It's off. So, warning to all of you. Like, I'm on to you.
Don't mess about.
Well, my agent sent an email into this person today saying, oh, we're really pleased you're fans of her work.
But
maybe you'd like to get that clearly. So pleased you're a fan of her work. But, you know, and actually, I'm going to say something else here. My experience has been, I'm not being all boohoo, poor me, the patriarchy, but it's been male big accounts that have done that to me. And it's, there's, again, it feels like some voices are being squeezed a bit. And I think it'd be nice that we all can share.
Completely agree. The next question we have here is based on confidence, and it says, well, this is my point of view, confidence is kind of crucial for success or doing whatever. How can individuals build and maintain confidence, especially after experiencing traumatic past?
It's a lovely question. Let me give something practical to do. So something practical is, we've all got a phone, like smartphone, is to go down and write down 10 things that you've done either in the last week or that day. And I think we think about confidence and courage, and you think, oh, I haven't run an Ironman, or I haven't done a big TED talk on stage. I'm going to do like public speaking for the first time. You think you have to do like a huge thing. To me, the most courageous things I've done were tell a friend for the first time something I felt ashamed about. Like, to me, the biggest, most courageous things I've done were have a difficult conversation with somebody I was in relationship with, or something like that. So I would really encourage people to make a list of 10 things that you have done, and make them recent to remind yourself, you know, because sometimes it's harder to connect to, oh, well, when I was, I don't know, whatever, I got that award, you know, and it might feel nice in the moment, but yeah, what did you do? Acts of kindness. Where were you? Did someone surprise you with something? Like, did you connect with a friend that you love this week? You know, put 10 things on there to remind you kind of who you are. And like, that is a really beautiful thing to do, and keep refreshing it. That's the point. Because the act of getting to like add to it is a really nice thing to do. It's like, oh, yeah, that happened today. And you'll start seeing like that it holds less value the older they get, even if it was massive. Like we spoke of it, like got a big client coming in, and, you know, like like big client, and like, oh, it's really cool. Next week, not that it won't matter to me.
Dies off though.
Yes. So I want to just say that it can be really lovely, small. I got my work done today. I had a lovely drink. I came in and did this. I did a great class that I really enjoyed. I showed up for myself today. I said no to something that I didn't want to do. Keep it on a list and keep it going.
That's so interesting.
Love that. I want to come back to something you said a second ago about dealing with, say, an A-list celebrity or a sports person, and dealing with setbacks. We had a question on setbacks in particular, whether it be a sports person, tennis player, cricketer, and they've had a setback and they have to let go of that setback, go straight away and go into the next set, for example, in tennis. How would you translate that to someone like me, Tom, or yourself, or Siobhan, for example, where you have a setback in life is, in the short term, the best advice to give someone who's gone through a setback, whether it be a breakup or bad exam results, for example? What would you say to those people who are going through those really, really recent setbacks?
And they have to go straight into something, or just...
Potentially, or just to sort of the short term, to basically move on from that as quickly as possible and then go on to the next day of school or the next set of tennis, for example.
So we're going to loop. So where possible, we're going to loop back to kind of where we started here.
Yeah.
Deal with it straight away. Because like me right now, 10 years on, with something that's like, you know, unraveling that I thought I buried, get it out. Like if you can, if it's not practical to deal with it in that moment, almost there's a coaching term, which is the parking lot. You know, you can just put it in the parking lot for now. But have a limit on it. Okay, look, I haven't got any bandwidth until Sunday, but I'm going to protect some time. I'm going to, you know, do whatever I need to do to make sure that I can be in this. And the only way out is through, really. Otherwise, we stuff it in and we're not dealing with it, and we're adding on. So try and find some time where you can safely be with it. And if that means being with a friend, going on a walk, whatever it might be, to kind of process it before it starts taking roots. Because these things where it gets tricky is when it starts to take roots. And shame, trauma events, they are sneaky. It's like a weed. It will literally start taking roots underneath anything if you're not careful. So yeah, try and find as quickly as you can some time that you know you're going to deal with it. You can also put a timer on it. You can say, right, I'm just going to feel the feels for 15 minutes. I'm going to be pissed off. I'm going to be upset. I'm going to be a fucking victim. You know, I'm just going to wallow in it. The alarm's going off. And then I'm going to, you know, maybe be curious. Use the lens of curiosity is a great one. It's non-judgmental. So your inner critic's going off. You're feeling shitty. You've had your 15 minutes of wallowing. You know, come through that and be curious. Okay, like what came up for me? We're afraid of feeling stuff. I think we're afraid that we're going to feel stuff and it's going to floor us. But more often than not, it's not the reality. And if you feel you might get floored, again, in part of your designing in this space, have a friend around, have someone that will be nearby, or something you know you're going on to afterwards, or something like that. But yeah, advice from someone that has been around the sun a few times, like try not to shove it in too far.
Interesting. Hey guys, Tom here. We hope you enjoyed part 2. If you do enjoy these videos, please like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us massively. Here's a bit of what you can expect to see in part 3.
Your imposter syndrome, inner critic, call it what you want, is like policing your shame. It's like a guard. If you're about to make a big change and say like change your job, leave a relationship, and your imposter and your inner critic's really going off, it's because you're about to leave the comfort zone.